I'll start now. Welcome and thanks for coming to my session on Cloud Migration Tips and Tricks Volume 2. My name is Barbara and I'm a Atlassian Solution Consultant and Product Owner at Decadis. And in my Atlassian Solution Consultant role, I specialize on cloud migrations within our team. And I was already here last year on JiraCon23, which was a blast, and shared my tips and tricks and talked about the biggest challenges and the biggest tips and tricks, like 4 big advice points to help with overcoming those challenges in cloud migration projects. And today I'm revising this topic a little bit, looking back on the challenges and tips I brought last year and how they still hold up, and then also go into new stuff that has happened in the last year. And there will be a little bit of room, like 10 to 15 minutes at the end for questions. So if there are any questions coming up during my talk, feel free to enter them in the Q&A section, and then we will accept them, and then it will be visible for everyone. So we will go through as many as possible of them at the end of the talk. My colleague Nicholas is here today as my moderator, and he will read me the questions so that they're clear for everyone what question I'm answering, and then we'll see whether I can get some answers to you. But first, let's see what I'll be talking about today before we get to the Q&A section. As I said, I will be reviewing the tips and the challenges I talked about last year and how they still hold up, maybe what's changed, what challenges maybe have become a little bit smaller, which challenges have become even bigger, and whether the tips and tricks to overcome those are still valid. And then I'll go into the changes and improvements that have been there within the last year, like the additional options and functionality that has been introduced, additional tools in the migration toolbox, as I would call it, that make the job simpler. And then I will show you one of our proud development and improvements from last year, which I could only tease last year, was the automatic migration path for JWT, our flagship app. And this year I can show you a hands-on example that will hopefully demonstrate you that even the most complicated apps or the most powerful apps can easily be, or more easily be, migrated to the cloud today. So let's start with looking at the challenges I talked about last year. So the 4 big challenges I identified last year were migration limitation, apps, user acceptance, and the time factor. And all of those are still true and still challenges in a migration, but for most of them, it got easier within the last year. So for migration limitations, when you're using the cloud migration tooling provided by Atlassian or third-party apps, but mostly what you'll be using is the Jira, Confluence, or Bitbucket Cloud Migration Assistant, then that will not migrate everything. Mostly the reason is that especially the Jira Cloud Migration Assistant works, for example, very project-based, which is a great boon if you want to migrate not everything all at once, but migrate maybe department-wise or in some other phases. And then you can migrate a few projects first and then some other projects later, or you can do partial test migration, stuff like that. But that also means that stuff that is not bound to a single project, for example, cross-project boards or dashboards, are hard to identify for the Cloud Migration Assistant as to belonging to your migration or not. So that's one example. There's also some other stuff from the settings or webhooks, for example, that are just not included in the migration system at the moment. And that was true a year ago, and that's still true. But there are continuous improvements on the roadmap of Atlassian on what to include in the Cloud Migration Assistant. And we'll talk about some of that later. But if there is something that you would like to migrate, but seems to not be included in the migration system, it's always worth looking at the dark features that are kind of alpha features for the Cloud Migration Assistant. So what you're looking for might still already be there, but not quite in a published state yet. And cross-project boards and dashboards is one of those things, for example, that has been in the migration assistant and possible to migrate for a long time now via a dark feature and is becoming an official feature quite soon. The second point, the second big challenge I talked about was apps, because that's like the biggest mystery part of every cloud migration project. We're starting, what apps is the customer using? How much and how complicated are they to migrate? And that's still true in a way, because this customization is kind of the biggest strength of Jira and Confluence, because it lets every company, every team adjust the products and the what it can do to what they actually need. But for migration, that is also like one of the biggest challenges, because for each of those apps, we have to see, do they exist in the cloud? Do they have the same feature set in the cloud? And how easy is it to migrate there? But the good thing is both Atlassian and the app vendors want you to migrate those apps successfully. The app vendors want to keep you as their customers, and Atlassian doesn't want you to have any migration blocks keeping you from the cloud. For example, if they're like mission critical apps for you. So there has been a lot of improvement, especially in this area in the last year, with the introduction of automatic app migration. And there are a lot of apps now that have automatic migration, so that you have to do nothing or nearly nothing in manual steps to migrate them to the cloud. And this is, of course, the easier, the simpler, or the more focused the app is, and the more powerful an app is, and the more ingrained, for example, in your workflows or in lots of different configuration elements, the more complicated it is to migrate an app, which is, of course, easy to imagine. If there's an app that just provides one single new custom type, custom field type, then that's, of course, easier to migrate than something that provides dozens of conditions validators or post functions and other stuff. But still, even with those complex apps, there is well-working automatic migration, and I will show you an example at the end of the talk. The third big challenge is user acceptance, and it's always true if there's a migration project that's a big project with big changes, and there are always those in your teams working with Jira or Confluence today that are excited for change, and there are those that are afraid of change. But it has become even easier maybe to win over your user base by teasing them with the cloud-only features that there are. That could be in Jira, for example, the basic roadmap, or in Confluence, the new whiteboard features that a lot of our customers are excited for. So it's still like the best way to involve your user base, like find advocates in the teams that use Jira and Confluence and show them what new stuff, what cool stuff is possible in the cloud, to make them not afraid of the cloud migration, but excited for all the new things that they can do in the cloud. And that's still the best way to go about it. And the last and biggest challenge that I talked about last year is that the time factor, that a migration project can take a lot of time. It can take months to like assess what do we need in the cloud, cleaning up the instance, finding out how the app migration paths go, and that can take a long time. And this is maybe the one challenge that has become bigger since I was here last year, a year ago, just because the deadline has not moved. And the server support is ending in less than a year now. So if you want to move to the cloud and have not started thinking about the details yet, this would be the perfect time. Second perfect time after like half a year ago, when that would have been the perfect time to go about it. But better to start now than to start like in January and having to do it in a month, which can be really, really stressful. Because of course, short time can mean more pressure, can mean errors in your migration, and that's really nothing that you want. But so these challenges are all still true in a way, but for the first three, the limitations, the apps, and the acceptance, it has just become easier, while the time factor, of course, has become a little bit harder to deal with the time remaining till the server end of life of support dwindling every day. So that were the challenges I talked about, but there were also some tips I brought with me to deal with those challenges. And the first biggest tip is to be prepared to clean up your instance before the migration so that you have less complicated scenarios to deal with and less just raw configuration elements to deal with, workflows, custom field, etc. Any app or stuff that you can identify before the migration that you do not actually need, you do not have to think about how to migrate. So that will make everything easier. And just build a detailed runbook of everything that you will have to do manually before or after running the Cloud Migration Assistant. There is, especially for this part, there are tools and guides provided by Atlassian that give you something to start with, give you good examples, for example, a runbook, so that you have all the steps, all the things that you need to do on a list, and don't forget anything on migration day. And these tools and guides provided by Atlassian is just one way to look for help, which is really like the biggest point. You do not have to do the cloud migrations alone. Everyone wants you to succeed. That starts with Atlassian, who wants to get you to the cloud and will help you. There are like lots of Atlassian support people specifically focused on cloud migrations that will help you. There are solution partners that can guide you through the whole process, that go to the whole project with you, from planning over the test migration to doing trainings with your users about the new features in the cloud and the changes, to doing the production migration and the whole package. And if there are some specific apps that you struggle with, the app vendors will assist you with the app migration because they do not want to lose you as customers either. And if you're contacting the Atlassian support, because there are some of the limitations that I talked about earlier are blockers for your migrations. For most of them, they are in some way your capacity on Atlassian's roadmap. And for nearly every big new feature they're working on, that's coming out, there is some kind of early access phase where they're testing it out with select customers. So if there is one specific thing that's a blocker for your migration, you can contact Atlassian either directly or via your solution partner to see whether you might be able to join the early access program for that feature if it's coming soon. Especially if you're working with a solution partner, they should be in the picture, in contact with Atlassian, and know about which features are right around the corner and might have an early access program there. So that's one point. If you ask for help, everyone is there and ready to help you, no matter how challenging your migration will be. And the third tip that will help you overcome the challenges, especially the app and limitation stuff, is to just test properly. So definitely do a test migration. Don't skip that step. It's very important. You can utilize the sandbox feature in the cloud, which makes it easy to clean up afterwards. This is also the perfect opportunity to involve your users, show them maybe the new features in the cloud, let them mess around in your test migration instance and try out the new stuff without being able to break anything. And this will also be very important for you to get confident in your runbook and timeline. So in your plan about what you need to do and when. So when you did the test migration, everything works great. You know exactly that if you do it in the production migration, you follow your plan, your runbook, then you know that everything will be fine as well. And this will also help you to note how long you will actually need for the manual tasks that might be required for some of the migration steps, so that you can plan your migration night or weekend or however your schedule is accordingly. And that's also important to take your time for this planning phase and also for the actual production migration, because the smooth migration where it's running nicely afterwards and there are no big problems or unmigrated content, stuff like that, or workflows that are not working, is just better than a fast migration, because then all your users will be angry. You might not be able to use the system properly. So you want to have the migration smooth and working. So this take a little bit more time beforehand, but it will be worth it on migration day. And how long it will actually take for your migration to go will completely depend on your instance. So the fastest that we had was really from starting the project till production migration day was just 4 weeks for a conference migration. But that was, for example, a case where there were very, very few apps. I think there was just one app on the system with very simple automatic migration path and about 30 spaces. And that so the actual migration itself with the migration assistant ran in less than an hour. So we could do the planning very smoothly and very fast. We could do the test migration. We could let the customer and the users test and do what's new training on the test migration, and then clean up and prepare for the production migration, all within 4 weeks. So that's like the ideal case. That is possible, but only if you have a very simple instance. And months is the more likely time frame to look at. So starting yesterday would be actually the best here. So looking at the tips, these all really still hold up. These are still all really important when you go about your migration, to keep those in mind, and those will help you to make your migration project run smoothly and successfully and make your users happy. So that's kind of reviewing what I talked about last year, but what's actually new? That's what you hear. What's the new and exciting stuff? What has improved? What new stuff is there that can help you? So a lot of the changes have been built into the Cloud Migration Assistant. So this is the core tool provided by Atlassian to help you with the migration, and it gets better. Maybe not every day, but every few weeks there's a release, and more often than not there's some new feature in there, and it will be by your side from the planning and prep phase till the production migration, and it will help you on every step along the way. So when I was in last year, I was still talking a little bit about site import versus Cloud Migration Assistant, and the site import has actually been moved into the Cloud Migration Assistant as the Migrate All at Once feature, which has the advantage of being able to use the user migration feature and user mapping of the Cloud Migration Assistant while using the faster migration speed of the site import, now Migrate All at Once. But it's still only usable if the cloud site is empty. So if you're working in phases, if you want to maybe migrate department-wise or stuff like that, you just use the normal default cloud migration way, the project-based way, with this it chooses what to migrate. But no matter which way you go, you can all do it now within one tool, and you don't have to do like different tooling for the different ways to migrate. It's just all in one now. So that's easier to navigate now, and also a feature that a lot of our customers really benefited from is the new assess and prepare the users feature. So one of the big changes between server and cloud is how users are identified. And on server, the identifier is the username, or in data center, and in the cloud, the identifier is the email. So to be able to migrate the users to the cloud and still have like the same signees on the tickets, on the issues, all users need to have an email address that's actually a real email address. And if there are multiple users with the same email address, this assistant needs to know what to do about them. In the past, so you had to like go through all your users and make sure that you gave everyone a unique email address, or delete duplicates, or change the email addresses until there were no problems anymore. And this has been built into the migration system now, and also gives you some nice ways to go about it. For example, today tell Jira to just merge all the users that have the same email address into one user in the cloud, instead of having to like create new emails for them just for the migration process, to keep them separate. So this is a very nice feature because it's just built in. It's in a Jira Cloud Migration System, and it's like right around the corner for the Confluence Cloud Migration System as well. So that's really helpful. There have also been a lot of new pre-migration checks added to the system. So the Cloud Migration System does a lot of checks when you have chosen your project. If there's anything configuration-wise that is a problem when moving to the cloud, and there have just been more of those added to make sure that any problem that could occur is like noticed beforehand. And in addition to like those usability features, the Cloud Migration System also just covers more stuff every day. Advanced roadmap plans are included. Customer migration can be like configured now, and as we will see later, more apps use the automatic app migration. It's still in beta, but from my experience, it's already working very nicely for a lot of stuff. So there has been the meat of the improvements in the Cloud Migration System. The devil is oftentimes in the detail there, so there's a lot of stuff about performance and usability there that I cannot go into detail into every little small thing, but there's still a lot of stuff on the roadmap there as well. So there are visible improvements every month or so. But besides the changes in the Cloud Migration System, there are also new tools in the toolbox around the Cloud Migration System that can help you mostly in the plan and prep phase. So what I talked about last year already is the Admin Toolbox workflow report, which I really like to use if the customer's system has a lot of different apps that all like add stuff to workflows. That could be here in the example Script Runner or our own Jira Workflow Toolbox, but also Create on Transition or issue publishers. There's a lot of apps that add additional conditions, validators, or post function to your workflows. And our workflow report is an easy way to see an overview of that, and in the statistics table up here, and also like click on one of the apps or one of the numbers to see exactly in which workflows these are included, and then even look at the detailed configuration so that you can check and plan in your preparation and see whether that's migratable functionality or not. So that's a very big tool that I use in a lot of the Jira migrations that I do. In Confluence, a similar purpose is served by the macro usage, which is just a built-in feature in the system administration, where you can basically see all the macros that are used at some point somewhere on any page, and if like there are all the native macros are included, but also those from third-party plugins, for example, the Draw.io plugin here, and then you can click on those to see on which pages they come up. So that will help you to see whether the Confluence apps on the system are actually in use. Maybe you don't even need them anymore in the cloud. And if they are in use, how extensively they're used, and where you can maybe do some quality assurance checks after the migration, whether the migration worked. So that's a really helpful tool. And another tool provided by Atlassian themselves a few months ago is the app usage for Jira. That's a new one. You can find it on the marketplace. It's not like built in like the macro usage, but it's free by Atlassian. And this will basically give you, for any of the apps that you have in your system, give you usage data, interaction, but also if they provide any configuration elements, for example, additional custom fields, or are used in workflows, then you can find a list of the usage here in this app usage app. So this will also help you with analyzing your instance and knowing what challenges await you on the migration. So these are the first three tools I mentioned here that make things easier. There are also some other tools by a third party. There is Microscope, which is an app by Adaptivist, which lets you export some stats of your configuration items into basically Excel exports, which is for some people easier to work with. So that can be helpful. This is less necessary now with the better user assessment in the Cloud Migration Assistant, but there are also tools like user management by TechTime that help you if you actually have to like clean up a lot of users, delete them, or change email addresses, stuff like that. That can help you there. And then the last one is an app that I have heard good things about, but have not actually needed myself. But that was a point that was explicitly asked last year during my talk. Someone asked about the Insight, or formerly Assets migration, and when that will be included in the Cloud Migration Assistant. And it is on Atlassian's roadmap. I think the last statement from them about it is from May or June or something, where they said that they want to have the beta running, or the early access program, in the last quarter of the year, which is there now. But I haven't heard news there yet. But in the meantime, there has been this third-party app released by Twinit, which can help you move some of your asset object configurations and your assets into the cloud, which I have heard good things about, but have not needed to use yet myself. So even there are tools available now for challenges like those. So new features in the Cloud Migration System, new tools in the toolbox, and the last thing I promised is to show you some automatic migration hands-on. And for that, I have to do a small move to the side, because I want to show you how our Jira Workflow Toolbox migration to the cloud, how we went about that with the automatic migration, and how we do as much as we can automatically, and how we help you with everything that's left after that. But for that to make sense, I first have to tell you a little bit about what Jira Workflow Toolbox is. So Jira Workflow Toolbox is an app that can do a lot of stuff, but the most important part, the central features, are additional conditions, validators, and post functions that can level up your workflows. So it's the best rated workflow extension app on the marketplace, for reasons, because it's very, very powerful and very easy to use. And because we have a low code approach, which means that most of the configuration can be done via configuration menus. So for example, choosing if you want to automatically update some fields during a specific workflow transition, then you can pick the fields with easy drop-down menus, etc. But for everything that if you want to do something more complex, more specific, we combine the simple configuration menus with our powerful expression parser, with our JWT expressions, and they provide additional formulas and functionality to make happen what you want to do. And in the cloud, we have the Jira have our custom expressions, but we also support the Atlassian native Jira expressions as well, so that you can use as much of the functionality there as possible. So you can use this app to customize your workflows to, for example, create some subtask automatically that you always need in your processes, or to automatically, for example, transition an issue if all the subtasks are closed, or block, for example, a transition until all the subtasks are closed, stuff like that, or restrict specific transitions to specific user groups, or make some fields required, not always, but only in specific steps. There's tons of stuff you can do. And as you can imagine, these tons of stuff that you can do are complex to migrate. There are some challenges with that. And one challenge, for example, is that anytime we do anything with custom fields in the migration, we need to make sure that the IDs are correct, because during the migration from server to cloud, the custom field IDs change. So if we want to move the workflow functionality to the cloud, we have to adjust all the custom field IDs. Then there is just a difference of API and therefore feature set. The API in the cloud just is built a little different than the one on server, which means that some features are just not possible on the cloud. Some features are possible but work differently. For example, in a lot of the areas where you can just use the names on server, for example, for priorities, or for if you want to set some priorities, or if you want to set some components, you can just use the names on server, but you need to use the IDs, the numbers in the cloud, stuff like that. Another challenge beside those ID make the changes in the functionality is just that if there are areas where there are custom expressions using our expression parser, that there, of course, the functionality set is also a little different, and sometimes we would have to migrate them into Jira expressions, and that's not always possible, but only sometimes possible. So we need to help with that. And I built a small example to show you how we help you with adjusting this migration in the cloud after. But first I have to show you what's built in there in server, so that we can actually see what the changes in the cloud are, or how this migrates and how this looks in the cloud. So I have like a very small workflow that just includes three features from Jira Workflow Toolbox. And one of them is an additional condition where specific transition is only possible if some fields are set. So the assignee, the due date, and the original estimate must be set to transition the issue in this step, and the resolution must be empty. So this is an example of something that you can do with Jira Workflow Toolbox, build like make specific fields required in only some steps and not all the time. And this we want to migrate to the cloud. The second part that's built into the workflow is an update field post function. So here, when transitioning the issue, there are some automatic changes to all the subtasks of the issue, or at least all the subtasks in the status to do. The affected versions are copied from the current issue. The due dates are set 2 months into the future. And depending on the component of the issue, the priority of the subtasks are adjusted to high or medium. And also the development manager field is cleared. So there are all these changes. There are some different fields involved. Some are system fields, some are custom fields. Sometimes stuff is copied directly. So this would be configured with a nice wizard dropdown. These are expressions and we have to deal with to get all these different features to the cloud. So this is, as you can see, a much more complex example than the first condition. And the last post function we have on our small example is the add or remove watches function that adds the users and the custom field development managers as watchers to the issue. So that's one you want to migrate, and you can do the automatic migration by just selecting the app in the Cloud Migration Assistant and then migrate the project using the workflows with these functionalities into the cloud. And then after the actual migration, the basic migration by the assistant, our app migration runs and adds these correct migrated stuff to the workflows that got migrated. And we try to do everything, migrate everything that's possible. And we have a good documentation online, what can be matched to the cloud exactly, where some changes are necessary, and what's not possible yet. And we will do everything exactly as written in this documentation so that you can understand and know what happened. But we also show you this in what we call the migration log. And this will help you to see what exactly was migrated and also will help you to deal with the changes that still have to do. And this is something that's best shown live. So I'll do just that. I have an example migration with exactly the stuff I showed you in the cloud, in our showroom. And you can find the migration log in the app configuration. So this is the JiraCon migration that I just did just for this talk. And you can see the three functionalities that I showed you before and how they got migrated. So for the first one, we see the status success here. And this means that this condition could be migrated to the cloud perfectly without any issue. And we can look into the details if we want and see that everything is here exactly as it was on server.
If we should see that live, please adjust your screen share again.
Okay,
we don't see it at the moment.
Let me check that. I thought I was sharing a screen, but apparently I was not. Can you see it now?
Give me a second. Not visible yet, but it said that it's requested, so it might probably just take a while to stream.
I can also try this again and just share this. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience there.
Maybe instead of sharing a screen, you could share a browser tab.
Yeah, I'm sharing. I can
try
that again. I tried to share the.
Yeah, it says now stopped sharing.
So this is the try. I I've requested the screen share,
Yep.
but the screen share, I don't know if anyone has to accept the screen share, because I can't.
I don't see any accept buttons here, so now
Yes.
we have
Now it's working.
yes,
Perfect. Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience there, but this is all going from the Q&A time at the end, or just the buffer time, but I still hope that it will have enough time for your questions. So this is the migration log I was talking about. So here we can see the three workflow features that I showed you before. And as we can see for the first part, the fields required condition, this one just got migrated completely and successfully. And we can look at the details and look at the workflow rule and see that exactly what I've shown you before, that the assignee, due date, original estimate, that this is just exactly the same in the cloud. And there have been no problems detected during the migration, so this is shown as success and is already marked as resolved. But for the second part, the more complex one with the update or copy field values, there have been some error detected, and we can go into the details to look what the issue is there. And there can be multiple stuff in this affecting the same configuration elements, and this migration detail rule will show you everything that could be an issue here. And in this case, there are some warnings and there are some errors. And if there is a warning, this means that the migration after the migration, this workflow rule will still work, but it might not work exactly as you expected, or might not work exactly as on server. So we have some warnings for you to explain what the difference might be. And if there is some error, then there is something that we were not able to automatically migrate. So this migration, this workflow functionality will not work if you try to run it now, if you transition an issue through that part of the workflow, and it will show up in the audit log, probably with some issues and some problems. But for every problem that was detected during the migration, there is an explanation here what the issue is, and we can go into edit workflow rule to directly fix it here. So you don't have to find the workflow, find the right transition, open a draft, change it there, publish the draft. You can do all the changes, all the necessary small changes directly here in the migration log, which will save you tons of time with the stuff that we cannot automatically do, although we try to do as much as possible. So, for example, the first problem that is noticed here, that the function, the parser function, the expression, was using a function that we simply do not have in the cloud for some infrastructure difference reasons. So we have to find a replacement, and we can see this here, the due date that we want to set to 2 months in the future. This add months functionality is just not there in the cloud, but luckily in the cloud we support both our own expression parser and Jira expressions, and there is a feature like that in the Jira expression that we can switch to and can replace this with a fitting Jira expression when create a new date, which just takes the current date and add 2 months to it to get the same, basically the same functionality as before, just using a different expression. So we can update this, and then we can switch back to the overview to see what the other issues were, and this will still save the changes that we did here. And look at the next problem. And the next problem is that, as I mentioned earlier, for some of the system fields in server, you can use the values, the human readable values like high and medium, and in the cloud you need to use IDs. So in this case, we need to change our expression here, because this will run, but this will give back a word, and the Jira will not know what to do with the word hi to put into priority 2. So it needs a number here, and as it goes, I luckily know what the number of high is. Highest is 1, high is 2, and medium is 3. But of course, if you did not know, you could look it up in the system, in the priority list. So if you change it like this is now fixed as well. And then we can take another look at the warnings here. These are about some additional options that we have in server that are not possible in cloud due to API differences. So these are just not possible, but these are just like some additional configuration options that do not change what the workflow function actually does. And the third is about a formatting issue with the due date, which is no longer relevant because we already changed it to a Jira expression. So everything is fine now. Every changes we needed to do have been done, so we can tell our migration log to update the configuration, and this will automatically update the workflow in the background, including basically creating a draft, doing the changes, and publishing the draft. And it will automatically resolve it here. So this way you can go through the migration log, and although this is like a very complex app in general, most of the migration effort has already been done for you, and for the small problems that might remain, more if you use a lot of custom expression, less if you only use the wizard stuff, you can go through this migration log one by one to check what the issues are and fix them right there. So the last one we have here is that add or remove watchers is a post function that we just do not have in the cloud right now. But for example, this is one that's on our product roadmap and will probably come more or less soon. But at this moment, if you're like building your runbook for the migration, you, for example, could note down to replace this with an automation rule. Of course, then you have like the disadvantages of automation rules, for example, that you would have to do it for either for every project that you're using this workflow in, or do it as a cross-project rule, and then be careful about the automation rule usage limits in the cloud. So you would like to have it in your workflow function usually. So you can either use the automation rule or wait till we've implemented this feature as well and brought out a new release. But if you have found like your workaround, your solution, you can mark this as resolved as well. So that was it for the migration log. I hope this has shown you that even for like a complex app like Jira Workflow Toolbox, there are like the comfort and ease of migration has increased tremendously since a year ago. And this is still, like, you have to still be like a little bit careful with the details, but there is a lot of help to guide you through the process. I will try to get back to my presentation for the closing slide. I have requested the screen share again, and I hope it will get accepted soon by the system, whatever that means. So this marks the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your time. I still have a little bit of time to answer questions, not quite as much as I hoped for, but I still hope that we can get through it. So let's have a look. Nicholas, have you selected some questions for me?
Yes, we got some questions. So I will read it out loud that everybody gets the main point. Someone asked, some customers manage their users with an external directory like Active Directory. Are the users migrated automatically now? Because before Atlassian support had to create the users before migration.
These are, so we already have migrated customers who had managed their users in an Active Directory, and those users can migrate to the cloud. It can differ how it exactly works, differs on whether you just want to migrate them and have them as normal cloud users, or whether you want basically an Active Directory in the cloud as well. Then you will probably like move it into Azure or some solution like that, and then you have to connect it to your cloud instance with Atlassian Access. So it could happen, for example, that you, depending on what order you do it, whether you migrate first and then activate Access and connect your an identity provider in the cloud, or whether you like connect it first and then do the migration afterwards. It could happen that, for example, if you migrate the user and you have deactivated them in between in your identity provider, that they get migrated and then immediately activated, deactivated, stuff like that. But you can migrate users automatically with the Cloud Migration Assistant, and you don't need that are like managed in Jira and added or imported into Jira from an Active Directory without the assistance of the Atlassian support.
All right, thank you for that. Going ahead with the next question, this time I will share it earlier. Someone asked, do you still support Admin Toolbox for Jira?
Of course, we still support Admin Toolbox for Jira, but we still support it on server on data center. We have looked into to which of those features might also be interesting to have in the cloud, but this is a very hard app to actually like bring into the cloud, because a lot of the features on server on data center, like on-prem, are like built right into the normal administration pages, and in cloud you cannot insert yourself in quite the same way into the administration pages, like into the native Jira pages. So it would have to be like much more alternative, like side-by-side pages, and much less integrated into the admin experience, and then it just does not bring quite the same benefit. So we are still looking on how we can bring like great admin helping tools into the cloud, but for now we continue to support Admin Toolbox on-prem for the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you for that. Next one. Do you have any tips about migrating private dashboards, filters, and cross-project dashboards to cloud?
So those are the stuff that there are dark features for. Especially for like cross-project boards and for private filters and private dashboards, or like global filters dashboards, there are, especially the cross-project boards, there are dark features that basically work in the way that the cloud migration, that you go into the system properties, activate this dark feature for the cloud migration system, and then you create a dummy project with nothing in there, like no issue in there, and then do a migration. And because of the dark feature, the cloud migration system basically says, okay, everything, all these dashboards, cross-project boards, they are associated with all the projects. So if you migrate your dummy project, that's just there as a placeholder for the cloud migration system to adjust, like to attach the dashboards, filters, and cross-project boards to. So there are dark features for that. I don't have the link to immediately post into the comments right now, but I know that there are. And because those are dark features, there might be some prep work that you have to do in the maybe even in the directly in the database, to make sure that the data is prepped correctly, that there are For example, no boards or dashboards belonging to deactivated or deleted users, because that can like mess up these dark features a little bit. So if you want to use those dark features, there's a little bit of more prep work associated with those, but they are supported just in kind of an alpha state. You can either Google it or you can come to our booth later, and I'll help you find the exact location where these features are documented in detail by Atlassian. I have used those already in the past with some success, but it's a little bit more fiddly than all like the official features built into the cloud migration system openly. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for these insights. I think that's quite helpful for some people.
I hope so.
Any further questions, let us know now or come to our booth, as Barbara already mentioned.
Yes. So I think that's all the questions that we have like for right now. But if there are like more questions that like come to your head the minute after we close the session, or right now, you're free to come to our booth and visit us. I'll be there from now, and I'll be happy to hear your questions and get into a little bit more detailed discussion. And if you need additional help specifically with migrating JWT, then feel free to contact our support. If there are like specific workflow functions or expression that you need help with migrating, we're there to get you through that and help you there on every step. And if you're excited, like if you haven't heard about JWT before and think, these are some nice post functions you got there, you can join my colleague Nicholas in 1 hour to learn about how you can use JWT to supercharge your ITSM workflows, to really automate a lot of stuff so that your agents can focus on the customer contact and making the customer happy and don't have to spend that much time on some repetitive tasks. So I hope I could make you excited for that and make you excited for your cloud migration and not afraid of your cloud migrations. And I hope there was something helpful for everyone here. If you have some time now, there are also the new next sessions listed in this track. And I hope you enjoy JiraCon. I hope you enjoyed my talk. And I hope you learn a lot tonight still. Thank you for coming.